I guess we'll do it that way.
Just wolfing down some trail mix on the couch of my hotel in Palm Springs, sunny Palm Springs.
Whoa. What are you doing out there?
It's not as fancy as it sounds. We came because it's so cheap. It's the off season. Would you like to know why it's the off season?
Why?
Because today is cooler than it was yesterday. And today it's 110 degrees outside.
Sheesh. Yikes. Is that
It's insanely hot.
is that atypical, or this is normal for this place, huh?
No, that's why it was so cheap to come out. But I'm loving it.
Global warming type situation or what?
No, I think it's a deep in the desert, surrounded by hot sand and rocky mountains phenomenon. You know,
Does it get cold at night?
Not really. Not in the summer.
Okay.
Last night I drove out into the desert. I was looking up how hot a hairdryer gets. They're usually like 130.
Really? I was going to say 220.
No, 130. So picture a slightly less hairdryer blowing in your face while you're driving. It's sort of like that. There's no such thing as a breeze here. That's not entirely true, but man, yeah, when you're in the sun and the wind is blowing, it's worse than if it's just kind of cool. It's insane.
You guys been swimming and having a hoot?
Mm-hmm. Sitting by the pool, doing nothing.
Nice.
What have you been up to?
I went and saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood yesterday.
Ooh, I'm excited to talk about that then.
Have you seen it?
Mm-hmm.
What'd you think?
I saw it opening day on Thursday at the Cinerama Dome in Hollywood.
What's the Cinerama Dome?
It's this famous old theater.
Is it Tarantino's theater?
IMAX theater? No, his is the New Beverly.
Oh, okay.
But the Cinerama Dome is in the movie. And,
it is?
And it's right in the middle of Hollywood. It was actually kind of a surreal experience. I was editing at our post house, Stand Post, which we can talk about. I was editing at my post house on Sunset Boulevard. And then my editor was like, hey, I'm going to go see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's showing in 70 millimeter at the Cinerama Dome, and it's fun. There's like 500 people there. It's a huge theater. Sure enough, the Cinerama Dome, I walked over. It was like right around the corner.
Whoa.
It was kind of a cool little Hollywood experience, making my own movie and then walking over to the Cinerama Dome to watch Quentin Tarantino show me how the big boys make movies.
Yeah.
Yowza. It's insane.
Pretty good.
Don't you think? I mean, I don't even want to comment on sort of the story and the ending and any of the things that some people might find controversial. From a craft and sort of just merchant of cool standpoint, it's pretty astonishing. I think.
I really enjoyed it. It had a lot of great elements. And my favorite part was the beer that one of the characters, Brad Pitt's character. Did you notice the name of the beer?
No, what was the name? I noticed it looked interesting.
Old Chattanooga.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, I saw it with a friend of ours, and I leaned over and I was like, dude, you see that? I mean, it's a split second. I wasn't positive.
That's so interesting.
But there are two shots of it. And the second time you get a pretty decent look. And I was like, that's his Old Chattanooga. And sure enough, I looked it up when I got home. And there is one reference to it online under like a Quentin Tarantino fan forum.
That is so interesting.
But yeah, he's
like
from Knoxville.
Oh, is he?
He was born in Knoxville. Yeah, he was born in Knoxville. So he always makes a reference to Tennessee in his movies. And there are actually a couple other. There's a Rock City Cafe in the where they're shooting the Western. And the people that are riding the horses with Tex say that they're from Tennessee and they ride horses in Tennessee. Anyway.
Interesting.
I liked it. I watched very closely, apparently.
You did watch very closely. Yeah, I thought there was a lot to love about it. It's beautiful. I think Brad Pitt,
who is looking more and more like Robert Redford.
He is looking more and more like Robert Redford. And man, I'm so okay with that. He was incredibly cool. I mean, the two of them together was such a dream, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed that. Yeah, I mean, you know, he's just one of those guys. It's like, regardless of if you like what he's saying, the way he says it is utterly undeniable, I think.
Right.
And that's just, man, I don't know. Now that I'm getting to that point in this movie, I haven't been watching a whole lot of movies lately, and watching that one, I was just like, he's just such a master. He has all of this so under control. I mean, so many decisions, so many scenes. He basically, you know, because it's about an actor and you see him working, so you see all these other things, and he masters all of those styles.
Mm-hmm.
It's really something. I will say, you know, the ending is not for everyone.
Right.
The ending is a lot, but I actually liked it. I thought it was okay. So
yeah, I'm reluctant. I'm not going to talk about it. We could talk about it in a year.
Yeah, I don't think we should comment on it
because people want to see it, you know, and they're gonna.
No, totally. I don't think we should.
Definitely worth going to see. Great movie.
Yep. Well, I told Kelly, because Kelly's going to see it right now.
Oh yeah.
And I said to Kelly, babe, I think you're gonna love this movie, but just know, you know, the ending is it's kind of a lot. And she was like, "Oh, you mean because it's a movie about a bunch of people getting murdered brutally in Hollywood by a cult leader's people?" And I was like, "Yeah, basically."
Right.
That effectively sums it up. It's a pretty. I mean, you know, there's definitely nuance to that if you see the movie.
I know you know the story of the Bianca, the Manson murders. Do you think, seeing it, that it's better to know about that or to not know about it?
I don't think it matters.
Really?
I think it's a Hollywood story, you know?
I talked about this with the guy I went to see.
I think it adds to the sense of dread. Let's put it that way. If you know the thing, I think it definitely adds like some context. Yeah. But I don't know that it's essential. What do you think?
Well, I have two approaches. Partly, you can watch this just as a great story unto itself. Mm-hmm. It could even work in a fictional world. If he had changed the names and put it in the 50s or whatever, it still would be a great movie. But knowing the story somewhat definitely heightened the sense of dread and the surprise at the ending, you know.
Totally.
If you don't know that story, the end, it's shocking, but it's not surprising because you don't know how it did go down.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I will say that. Yeah, I did know how it ends, and I really enjoyed the surprises that he threw in there. I feel like we're already getting into spoiler territory, so maybe we should cool it. But all right, well, spoiler alert over. Let's move on. So now that I've realized I'm probably never going to make movies that are as compelling as Quentin Tarantino, I think I'm just going to burn rollers and quit.
Sell real estate in Palm Springs.
Yeah. You know, there's probably a great living to be made out here. It's only 115 degrees out sometimes in the summer. Oh, we did take this beautiful tram yesterday on the way into town. Yeah, I sent you some pictures. There's this tram that picks up at about 1,500 feet up. You know, you drive up this little mountain road. You get on this tram. It's built by some Swiss engineers or something, because apparently Americans don't know how to build trams. And you'd think we'd figure it out. We got plenty of mountains, you know.
There's one in New York that goes over to Roosevelt Island. You ever take that?
Oh, I have taken that tram. Yeah, that's interesting. It's a good way. I think it's an excellent method of transportation. Point is, we took this tram up, and you go up and you end up at about 8,600 feet up. So quite a climb. It was spectacular because the difference in temperature. It was 113 at the bottom. Then we drove up about 1,500 feet and it was like 105. And then we got up to the very top and it was about 73.
Whoa. Wow.
Isn't that wild? It was just this alpine wonderland.
Huh.
And you get up over this crest, these rocky, craggy mountains, get up over this crest, and then all of a sudden it's green and lush. And it was bonkers. Yeah, it was really, and you can camp up there. So one day I kind of want to come back and do, because it's the wilderness section of a state park. I kind of want to come back and take the tram up and then just putz around up there for a while. It's really cool.
Is it a pretty heavily I mean, I know it's wilderness So obviously, relatively speaking, but
the tram is very popular. But once you get away from the tram, you get into the shit pretty quick,
right? And it's empty
because most people take the tram up, eat at the restaurant, and go down.
This is a segue of sorts, but in the movie that we just talked about, this is not a spoiler, but they use narration.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bunch of radio, old footage from TV shows, etc. Did you find any correlation to Rollers in that? Did you notice that or think about it?
I did. I felt validated. I thought, this is not necessarily a spoiler. There's some voiceover that comes in about 2/3 of the way through the movie, and it just works.
Yeah.
It's fine.
You think that was intended from the get-go, if you had to guess?
That's a good question. I don't know. And I don't know that I need to. It worked. It served the story.
Sure.
And I'm not saying you're necessarily even taking a stance on that, but I enjoyed that because I was like, I want to be entertained. I want to know what's going on. I want to have some fun.
Right.
And
totally.
It was necessary information about a part of the story. It allowed us to view that chunk of the story in, I think, probably the most compelling way, considering what the story was actually about. It truncated some stuff that could have taken much longer. And I was like, this is great. I think it solved the problem. I think, are you bringing that up because, spoiler alert, guys, Rollers, John and I sort of invented a couple characters that are a radio show, which we've discussed a little bit, but there's a radio show that sort of functions as part of the world that we've built for Rollers, and I'm excited about it. It sort of started as this gimmick that I did as a placeholder, and then very quickly, I don't know, maybe calling it a gimmick is too strong, but it started as a placeholder, and then I realized, oh wait, radio and music and this world, and they're all super intertwined. It's super interesting. And then we realized, people were responding really well to it. So we've been working on that. It's been super fun.
Back to the Tarantino movie in relation to this, there's a moment, this isn't a spoiler, but there's a moment where he's showing a party in Hollywood. And he uses name titles.
Right.
And there's only one time in the movie that it happens. And it's not that important. The characters are not that important. And other much more important characters are not labeled. It was an afterthought. I'm almost positive.
What did you think of it?
I thought it was an afterthought. I thought somebody made him do that. Or
did you think it detracted?
I mean, I noticed it, but since I'm working on this with you or thinking about it, talking about it with you, I'm noticing stuff like this more,
Right.
Whereas if I wasn't scrutinizing the movie as I watched it, but that definitely popped into my head that.
No, me too.
And the same with the voiceover, like it definitely worked. It didn't detract from the story. Right. It was good. It moved the story along, like you said, but I wonder if it wasn't an afterthought.
I think it probably was.
Or a producer, a producer stepped in, or, somebody who watched it in screening, people said, what's going on? I'm confused. And they had to add it.
Or maybe the movie was 3 hours long.
Right.
And they shot a bunch of stuff and they were like, we got to turn this into a 5-minute montage.
Right.
And they were like, okay,
exactly.
I can do that after a big fight. I think that's probably what happened. But again, it worked for me and I'd rather watch that. I mean, okay, I will say this. I think the movie, speaking of editing, I think I would have cut another half an hour out of it. It would have been hard. To be clear, there was nothing in the movie that I thought was bad, but there were things about it that were not as essential. But then again, I felt like there were scenes that were really fun. It's the same kind of feedback that I've been getting on Rollers, but I'm not at a point in my career where I can be like, no, I'm leaving that shit in there. I don't care if you don't think it's relevant. I think Tarantino is at that point, and it's similar with like Magnolia. All those storylines that P.T. Anderson crammed in there are interesting, but they're not all equally interesting. And I think if I had to make one broad critique of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it would be, man, I just love the Brad Pitt, Leo DiCaprio storyline.
Right.
And I really love the way that it fits into the broader Hollywood narrative. And there were areas that I felt like there was a little bit too much stuff unrelated to how they fit into the broader Hollywood narrative of the Manson murders, etc., and a little bit too much stuff of the Manson murder side of things that didn't have enough to do with their story. So there were just, if you think of it as like a Venn diagram, my favorite part of the movie was the overlap of those two worlds, and the parts, the half an hour or so of the movie that I would have cut was sort of 15 minutes on the like Sharon Tate Manson side and 15 minutes on like kind of another side, and just sort of let it be this like slightly tighter story. That was my one sort of big critique. But again, having been through that process in my own little minuscule way, I'm realizing how freaking hard that is, because maybe the movie wouldn't have felt like it did without all that extra stuff. You know, it might have felt like a different story.
The scenes of Sharon Tate, Margot Robbie watching her own movies in the theater.
Was beautiful.
There's like, it's a several minute shot happening, and it's just her silently watching this, and like her reaction to it's magical, man. It's really good.
Really magical, and it really humanizes her as a person. And that's one thing that I really think was interesting about the movie, is that I won't speak for anybody else, but when I hear about the Manson murders, etc., I haven't done a lot of deep research. And so when I think about it, I think, oh, these, almost the way that like Brad Pitt and Leo are always referring to the dirty hippies, and you really get the sense of like what late 60s LA was like. Like, it was smoggy, it was hot as balls, and hippies were gross. Like, I think a lot of times I probably just in hindsight, I kind of romanticize hippie stuff. And the truth is, yeah, they probably smelled bad and were kind of annoying because a lot of them were doing tons of drugs and like didn't work. And, I mean, not all across the board, but like, I imagine it's like the way I feel. It's probably similar to the way I feel about certain sort of subcultures now. I'm like, it sounds cool, but like not, it's gross. Like, it's, we were thinking about going to Vegas, and I was like, I don't know. Kelly goes to work, she works with a lot of people who go to Vegas all the time. And I was like, we're just going to end up trying to sit by the pool, and there's going to be some grimy pool party with like a DJ and like 600 22-year-olds grinding in the pool. And that sounds fun, and it kind of looks fun in a really nice movie, but it isn't really like that in person. And I think I got a little bit of a sense of like how silly Hollywood was back then in a way. But it's also very alluring. And one thing I'll comment on too is the driving.
Yeah.
Driving is such a key part of LA. These cars look so dangerous. It's like no seatbelts, and they're driving like 1,000,000 miles an hour through the Hollywood Hills.
At some point, a woman takes like a baby that's in the front seat, unrestrained, out of the car. Like,
I mean, he does a great job of portraying sort of the danger.
Sure.
Like, that is one thing that I think, again, it's like, people my grandparents' age are like, well, we were fine. And it's like, yeah.
Some of you.
Yeah, some of you were. So true. I mean, I don't know. I thought it was really cool. He created a world. It's sort of a world that existed, but at the end of the day, period pieces are created worlds, and
100%,
like
especially this one.
Dog food. Oh, totally. It was totally it was once upon a time story. It was a fantasy story.
Right.
He feeds his dog food, and it was this can of food, and it was like rat flavored.
Right. It's called Wolf's Tooth.
That's right.
Wolf's Tooth, I think.
But I was like, rat flavor. That's totally
raccoon and rat flavored. Yeah.
I loved those details, man. There were so many details. Everything just felt so real and tangible, not like glossy and perfect, like all the clothes they wore. And what do you think of the Bruce Lee scene? I thought that was amazing.
Excellent. And it's based on there was a story about Bruce Lee that's actually kind of similar to that, where he got in a fight on the
Don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, but I think that's based on a real story. I don't know about the outcome, but yeah, there's so many. If you allow yourself to get sucked into that world, it's a great, great ride. If you're at all resistant to it, I could see people not liking stuff like that.
Well, I think it's a little controversial on like, social issues. And I just am not particularly interested in engaging with that conversation. I just think everybody's got a high horse.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of it times, but at the end of the day, it's sort of like I've heard some people saying like you should be watching these movies instead, and support these movies. And I'm a little bit like, I get that, but also
I don't hate that.
No, I'm not. I get the argument. No, I don't like it either. And to me, I'm kind of like, yeah, but you know what? At the end of the day, if I'm going to watch basketball, I'm going to watch the best basketball. I'm going to watch, I'm going to watch professional basketball. Right. That's why I've never understood college sports. I'm kind of like, yeah, I don't know. I get why other people like it, but I don't feel any need to watch collegiate sports, especially because they're, taking advantage of the players. But that's just it's an example of like, even as an indie filmmaker, I watched a movie called Under the Silver Lake. And I know some people are involved, and I know it was a big saga, and I'm really not even like hating on the director. The guy who made It Follows, which I also just frankly didn't think was very good.
I liked it. I saw that in the theater with my pal, and I liked it.
I thought it was good, but I just felt like all homage and no voice,
Sure. Okay, that's fair, but
whereas Tarantino is somehow all homage and all voice all at the same time. I was gonna say this about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I as soon as I left the theater, I think I texted you or probably a couple people, and I was like, I don't know that Tarantino has a whole lot to say all the time. I think he's got a pretty bleak, sort of simple-ish outlook on the world that I don't find particularly interesting. But man, the way he paints pictures of characters in the world is so incredible that I almost don't care what he has to say, because I can, not everyone has to do everything is what he's doing in the ending, which is the controversial part, or like in general, what is this movie worth seeing? I'm like, it's beautiful. It's entertaining. It actually does, to me, capture some sort of social commentary in a weird roundabout, not on the nose way, which is kind of what I think is interesting anyway. And I want to watch what I want to watch, make compelling movies. And I'm saying that as an indie filmmaker, knowing that very few people will probably watch my movie, because at the end of the day, if it's a weekend and you're thinking about going to the movies, which is already a big if, what are the chances you're going to see Rollers instead of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Slim. Unless Rollers is just so compelling in a completely different, unique way that just draws you in and makes you want to watch it.
You got to start a viral marketing campaign.
I totally need to do that. But again, the burden of getting people to watch the movie is on me. I'm not going to go out and be like, you should watch this movie because you need to support. Now, Don't get me wrong. I'm going to ask people to go watch it. But at the end of the day, I mean, dude, it's with this podcast. It's the same way. Like, I think sometimes when I see family or friends or whatever, people feel a little guilty. They're like, I'm not caught up. And I'm like, I don't expect you to listen to this freaking show for an hour every week unless you like it.
I couldn't disagree more. You must listen.
Anyway, so I watched another movie called Under the Silver Lake. Kind of a noir. People have compared it to Inherent Vice, which I think is a masterpiece. It's another LA movie by the guy who made It Follows. It did not get great reviews. But man, about 20 minutes in, Kelly leans over and she's like, this feels like something that would have been at the Broad Street Film Festival.
Oh, ouch.
It was like a student film festival that we started in college. And I agreed with her. I texted another friend, Josh Losey, who's a director, and I said, dude, is this movie pure garbage or am I just missing something? I was like 30 minutes in, but it's a 2-hour and 20-minute movie.
Whoa.
And I was just trying to decide if I was going to keep watching it. And he said, no, it's not pure garbage, but it definitely doesn't work. And, here's the thing. It had moments. It had interesting things about it. I don't know all the backstory. I don't really care about all the backstory because I'm judging it as a piece of finished work. And man, it just put into relief how different movies, like just even, not even the budget of, obviously Once Upon a Time in Hollywood has the money to transport you to a place, but also just the way that he shoots those things. Because I was looking at Under the Silver Lake and they had so many extras, so many very fancy LA locations, so many resources. And yet I just really, really did not enjoy almost any of it. And
wow.
And there were like 4 or 5 really great scenes, and then the rest of it was just this meandering, pointless garbage. And at the end of the day, I started reading stuff about it, And some people are like, you know, he's doing this, this, and this. And I was like, okay, that's fine. But he didn't take me on a ride. That's all that matters. Did you make me want to know what twists you were going to throw at me? You know?
Do you want to talk about editing with the dude?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was working with this editor. We're making a lot of progress. I'm feeling very encouraged about where the
Who is
movie's
this guy?
at. His name's Tyler. He's a very talented director. We should have him on sometime. Very talented director. Has worked with Tara multiple times. Tara, my producer, has produced some stuff with her. And yeah, he's just a talented pro who kind of came up through editing and is willing to help us out and has just been sat with me Thursday. We're going to sit together a couple times this week. And basically we're just going through the movie scene by scene and kind of figuring out how to make each scene, like in most cases, you know, 10% better so that we can kind of start checking things off the list, which is wild. You know, I'm getting to the point where I'm going to edit scenes for the last time, which is weird.
Is it? It's good.
It is good. I'm really excited about it.
And so you guys edit for what, like 5 to 7 hours together?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, about that.
And then you went and saw the movie together.
We did.
We
did see the movie together.
Are you guys dating?
I'd rather not comment on the record.
Okay. Okay. Are you allowed to in the film industry? Are you guys technically under some kind of rules and regulations?
No, I think it's pretty much fair game.
Okay.
I wouldn't say we're dating, but it depends. You know, it's a semantic argument, I guess, more than anything. If dating involves spending time together and talking about your lives and stuff, then yeah, I guess we're dating.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I went on a date to see. I went with one dude to see that movie, and I was like, I'm on a date.
Mm-hmm.
How many more times are you going to meet with this dude?
I'm not sure. Probably. I'm guessing somewhere between 2 and 3.
2 and 3 more times, and
so like somewhere between 2 and 3.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, it's like 2.5 more times,
depending on what other Tarantino movies come out.
Yeah. Between now and when we finish Rollers.
So when you're done with him, is the expectation that the edit will be
when
done?
I'm done with him, like when I dispose of him
in 7 years when you guys break up?
Yeah.
When you're done with him, though, is the expectation that you'll be done with the edit?
Well, I have a deadline. Oh boy, I don't want to say it on the air yet.
Okay.
I have a deadline very soon that is a soft but semi-soft. It's a.
We got it. We got the joke.
It didn't start as a joke. It is a picture like a, you know, on the scale of gas to granite rock, you know, like a marble, like a really dense rock. This deadline is somewhere in the range of thick modeling clay. You know,
it's pretty hard.
Yeah, it's pretty hard. It's far from fixed, but way more than sort of this nebulous deadline. It's a real deadline in my mind. Very soon, coming up to picture lock, which means I will strip out all the music, all the other crap, and I'll hand off a cut to my composer, Dan. I'll hand off a cut to the sound people, and I'll say, do with it what you will, and we'll begin working on it in a different capacity. Again, seeing Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I was like, sound and music and they just are so important if you're if you're the kind of filmmaker that I am, which is like, I never had money, I never had cool cameras, and I never had great actors, so I just had to make stuff interesting the way I could, and a lot of times that's with that stuff. And I feel like I've been trying to make this movie to some extent with one hand behind my back, because I just haven't been at the point where I can really do the things that I feel most experienced at, and I'm getting to that point where I'm like, ooh, this is gonna be so fun. So I'm really jacked. I mean, even this radio stuff, that's how I feel. I'm like, I like just making stuff. I like making stuff that's funny and interesting and compelling, and I like to iterate, you know. I like to do stuff that I can try and then fix it and then do it again and then do it again and then do it again. And it's fun to be at the stage where everything isn't front loaded with prep.
Right. Do you have a marketing plan for the film?
No, I think, you know, the real plan is try to get into a major spring festival. That's when I think, once we know what festival we're premiering at, the dream would be that we sell it to the kind of distributor who's going to get real pumped about it. whether they're small or big, they're going to get real pumped about it. And they're going to say, I know who's going to want to watch this movie. And we're going to say, we think that's who's going to want to watch the movie too. How do we find them? And they're going to be like, well, we have Carla on our staff. She's an expert in marketing, and she's going to work with you to figure out how to position the movie. And I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch, but I really can't imagine a scenario where no one wants to buy this movie. What I think would be the sort of what I would consider a worst case scenario is no one wants to buy the movie the way we would want to sell it to them, whether that's for the right price or with the right marketing commitment or whatever. That's what I can kind of imagine being the thing that holds us back from quote unquote selling. I'm really not too worried about that because again, I love my Chinese philosophers, John.
Yes.
Now that I'm getting to the end of this thing, I've caused myself a lot of grief. Our loyal listeners have witnessed a percentage of it, perhaps a percentage that I will one day regret. Or maybe I'll look back and I don't know. Maybe
take all of these episodes offline and burn them.
Yeah, we're just gonna get rid of it completely. This show never existed.
We could start over with our.
Let's rewrite the narrative. See, that's what I don't want to do. You know, I like the idea that we can't rewrite the narrative of how this movie came to pass, whether it's good or bad. Dude, in this day and age, there's safety in disclosure because I have nothing to hide. No one will be able to accuse me of not trying or sort of just being some version of myself that I don't think is accurate. Because if you really want to know why I made this movie, how I made this movie, with whom I made this movie, it's all there, baby.
Do you have that same approach to law enforcement or privacy in general in terms of the government? That like, I've got nothing to hide. So,
well, I think there's always trade-offs. You know, I was just talking to my buddy Aman, who directed Davion, for example. And he's got a couple really exciting projects set up, one of which is at a major studio. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say what they are or where they are, but one's at a major studio and one is with a very, very like pantheon level director producer, like one of the greats who is still alive. And it's just so insane to think that I'm one distant connection away from this person now. Anyway, I'll tell you offline. It's exciting though, and I couldn't be more excited for Mon. Oh, I'm also I guess Bryce has a project with Stevie. Man, dude, we're just climbing the rungs, baby. I mean, I'm just kind of like dangling down at the bottom of the ladder, like holding on to Amon and Bryce's coattails for dear life. Take me with you. That's what I'm saying. I'm like, Bryce, take me with you to Stevie's office. And he's like, get off. And he like kicks me in the face.
Has he been to Stevie's office yet?
Yeah, I think he's been to Stevie's office. I don't know if they've met yet. Stevie's making West Side Story. So.
Oh, wow. Crazy.
No, I don't want to say who Amon's producer is. Maybe he'll say one day once it's further along. I want to have him on the show. He's a great guy. Anyway, Amon and I were talking, and we were talking about how fun it would be to do a super simple kind of off the grid project. These big projects, I'm seeing it happen to a lot of friends. They take so long to get into production, to get out of to and so Amon was like, man, wouldn't it be so fun to just sneak away with some really talented people and just make something? And I was like, yeah, that actually does sound like a lot of fun.
In what format?
A film, like a movie.
Oh, okay, I got you.
But something tiny, something that like a ghost story. David Lowery, we produced Never Going Back with them. And Never Going Back kind of fit the same thing. No one talked about it until after it was over. So anyway, my point is, if that's the kind of movie you want to make, and if you're the kind of director who has good representation, and if you come out with this movie, people will pay attention, like a ghost story, or to this at this point, honestly, like if Amon did it, his reps would, and it was good, his reps would push it, and he would likely get into a major festival with it and all that kind of stuff. For me, I'm just not there as a director. And so if I go off and make some tiny movie, there's a chance no one will ever hear about it. And so for me, that's the trade-off, when it comes to privacy, disclosure, etc. I think a similar trade-off exists in a broader sense where, well, to be more specific with the movie, yeah, you know what? I've put myself out there. I've put myself on the record saying things that maybe I'll regret, maybe I won't. I can't rewrite the narrative. So in some ways, if the movie's terrible, I can't blame anyone There will be no ambiguity, as you've pointed out very nicely.
All right.
There's no ambiguity about what happened. Well, clearly I just took a big swing and I freaking missed. If the movie's not good, that's how it goes. I can't make up some excuse about whatever, you know.
You can live with that.
I can live with that. And honestly, I'm so confident that that's not going to be the ending. Now, who watches it? How many people watch it? I don't know. But I feel confident that this movie, I'm going to be proud of it. I will say this, you know, not many people outside the industry have seen it yet. Most of the people who have been watching test screenings at various stages have been other filmmakers. And I think filmmakers are sort of, we train ourselves effectively to watch with certain pairs of glasses on. I think like a couple people I've specifically said to them, look, I don't need nitpicky notes. I just want you to watch this. Try to pretend like it's done. Try to enjoy it like you're just watching it. It's obviously going to bump you, but just enjoy it. Don't feel like you have to write down every single thing that pops up. And I got to say, dude, the people who've watched it that way seem to like it. Again, it's only a few. It's a small test size, but people that I really respect that have great taste have watched it and said, I enjoyed watching it. I felt good after it ended. I wanted to see it again sometime. It reminded me of certain movies that I really like. And some of those movies that they mentioned were movies that were huge influences for me. So that was like, dude, and again, that's like we're not even close to being done with it yet.
Right.
So I have a ton of confidence that we're moving in the right direction. But in terms of like being on the record for everything, I didn't always know that would be the case. And I still don't know how it's going to go. You know, I've said I want to go to Toronto. Well, I'm not going to Toronto because the movie's not going to be done by the time Toronto comes around. You know what? But I can live with that because I want to make the best possible movie.
Yeah.
That's life. And so in a broader sense, the sort of I have nothing to hide thing. Well, yeah, I mean, I don't have anything to hide in certain ways. There are also things that I have no interest in people paying attention to. And so I will not publicize them. And when it comes to ultra weird privacy sort of violations, that's the other trade-off. I'm choosing to live in America. I'm choosing to have access to the internet, and they're sort of implicit and explicit user agreements everywhere. And if I really don't like that, then I might just have to move. But you know what? At this point, the trade-off still seems worth it to me. I may regret that, but I'm not going to pretend like the internet is likely to exist without that stuff anytime soon, you know?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think you're in particular listening to your attitude about the thing. Like, it doesn't matter what happens, you're going to be good. That's critical. Mm-hmm. People take shots all the time. Well, most people take zero shots, but people take shots all the time. Most businesses, 90 something, right? Isn't it like 90% of small businesses fail within the first 10 years?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Man, people are out there taking risks and failing and starting over. The failure part doesn't even matter. It's just people are taking risks, and whatever the outcome, most of the time it's not fabulous success until it is.
Totally.
And so you keep going and keep trying, or you give up and you do nothing.
Right. I know. And you know, Kelly, the other day we were on a nice walk, an evening stroll in the neighborhood. And she said, she leaned over and she said, "Would you like to make another movie?" And I said, abso-freaking-lutely, you know, I am, and not in an anxious, I got to get another one out so that I can like do better. I have felt that way at times, but no, right now I feel like, you know what? This was so fun. I don't want to do it again the same way I did it, but I absolutely want to do it again. I mean, without any shred of doubt, I am so excited to do it again. I'm also so excited to do it better next time. Not anxious to do it better, but excited to do it better, that I'm also not in a big rush. Right. You know, I want to wait until I have the right idea and the right opportunity to make sure that my quote unquote sophomore effort is better and a step up and worthwhile, because and that may not be any particular measurable increase, but that I feel like I have learned something different and something new on the next project. I feel like I've exhausted, or I'm getting to the point where I've kind of exhausted this particular opportunity as a learning experience. And, again, back to sort of, I've really questioned a lot lately. Like, is there a chance that I'm wasting my time? I was joking about killing the movie because you better believe that shit crosses my mind all the time. I'm like, why am I making this? It's not Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, whether you like that or not. Now, is it something on its own? I think that's what I'm asking myself right now. And again, I think the closer I get, I think the answer continues to be yes. It's its own thing. Some people paint on giant canvases. Some people paint on the back of postage stamps. Some people compose music for a flute, and some people compose music for orchestras and do operas. And one day I would love, like, Tommy was saying this in our last interview, I am doing a lot of writing. I find the arts just compelling in general. And I'm realizing, that they're all valuable. And in a way, I couldn't be more thrilled with Rollers in that sense, because I just look at it now and I think I fully exploited the resources I had at my disposal. Yeah. I had amazing talent, so I leaned into that. I had an amazing location, so I leaned into that. I had amazing music, so I leaned into that. And I have a lot of people willing to help me make it better in post, so I'm leaning into that. It gets me jacked.
As it should.
Well, quick shout out to Tony Hale, was in Toy Story 4. He's a friend, long story, but basically when he was shooting Veep in Baltimore, he got introduced to my parents because he didn't know a lot of people in Baltimore. They live up there, and they started hanging out.
You mean that rat-infested shithole Baltimore?
Yeah. Yikes. Ooh, that got me fired up. I love Baltimore. Baltimore's a great city. Baltimore for life, baby. I've only ever really lived in Baltimore as a young man. That's where my home has been. Take that.
Well, Trump. It's definitely not. There are parts of it that are pretty rough, but I mean, it is a great city.
True. There are a lot of rats in Baltimore, but to characterize the entire city that way is absurd. Tony Hale, she in Baltimore. Point is, he lives out here, but we've talked a bunch and talked about different movies and stuff. Anyway, big shout out to him because he was in Toy Story 4, leading role, like the third highest grossing movie domestically this year. Freaking blew up. So really proud of him because he's had such a long career. He's got a new show coming out too, called Archibald's Next Big Adventure, and it's about this bird who's always looking forward to the next thing. I actually think it's based on a kid's book you wrote, and it's actually really good. I went to a table read. It was really fun. Well, do you have any other thoughts, Jan?
No, I think that's good. Let's leave it there.